Rugby World Cup 2023, 5 takeaways from the final, folks. The weather is pretty miserable here in New Zealand, which perhaps fits the mood of the country. But life still goes on. The sun behind these clouds and rain has still come up. Let's talk 5 takeaways from the Rugby World Cup final. Written up a piece for Planet Rugby for this one as well, so check that out down in the description. Still lots of rugby content going on there with the Rugby World Cup coming to a conclusion and other rugby still on the horizon. First one is kind of a cliche one, but defense wins Rugby World Cups, right? Like if you looked at the stats, the match stats of that game without looking at the score, you would see like run meters, New Zealand, clean breaks, New Zealand, possession, territory, New Zealand, try, only one, New Zealand, South Africa, no tries. So you may assume that New Zealand won the game by looking at those stats, but the old adage about defense winning World Cups rang very true in this one. And it's kind of an exceptional one. Like South Africa in this game make 209 tackles, which is more tackles than they have had to make in any game this year by some way. I think it was like 170 odd in one of their games earlier in the year. They made a ton of tackles. Game was won on defense. The other key area you look at is the turnovers one. I mean, the tackles, you've got multiple guys getting 10 plus tackles. You got Peter Steph made 28, Dion Fourie made 20, Khaleesi I think was 14, Faf was 15, Moster I think was 15. Many guys got in double figure tackle numbers, but then Kwaka Smith comes off the bench, wins I think 3 turnovers. South Africa won the turnover battle 7-2. Like obviously you're going to win more turnovers if you have less possession, but still 7-2, 209 tackles. That is enough for a World Cup. So, yeah, as much as we love to get the plaudits to all the try scorers and goal kickers and whatnot, I'm pleased to see Peter Steph got man of the match because that was absolutely a game won on defense. Second one is that the ABs had their chances, man. And now it happens at every game, at every level of the game. Whenever a side loses, they point to the ref. I swear to goodness. I was watching the New Zealand coverage of this game, and like at half time, goodness gracious me, they were really hard to watch. Just saying, oh, it's so boring, and the ref's doing this and the ref's doing that. It's all unfair, blah, blah, blah. By no means unique to New Zealand. It's by no means unique to the social media age. People have been calling up talkback radio to moan about referees pretty much as long as rugby has been around, at least in my lifetime. People have been complaining about referees, but you can talk about Wayne Barnes and his officiating crew till the cows come home. That doesn't take away from the fact that New Zealand had chances to win that game and didn't take them. This is painful for me to say as a Kiwi, but Jordie Barrett missed a penalty, which he normally would have got. Richie Mo'unga missed a sideline conversion, which was at least one. He's gotten in other occasions. The All Blacks had 2 attacking line-out chances in the first half when they were struggling to get attacking chances in South Africa's half, and they lost 2 of them. The line-out was generally pretty good for the All Blacks, but 2 key attacking ones in the first half they missed. And the turnovers conceded, New Zealand dropped a lot of ball. I looked up the numbers, man. 19 turnovers conceded by the All Blacks. I mean, some of that's getting pinched by the likes of Kwaka and whatnot, but some of it's just you knock it on. 19 turnovers conceded is the most by any New Zealand team this year. So, the one game that you have your most turnovers conceded is a Rugby World Cup final. I know it was wet, so that's a part of it, and they had a lot of balls, so that's part of it too, but ultimately, you want those skills executed under pressure, to be clinical. Against Ireland, that key quarterfinal, the All Blacks conceded 3 turnovers in the entire game. Clinical. Against South Africa in the final, not clinical. If you're a bit more clinical, maybe you win the game. If you kick those goals, maybe you win the game. If you can take those lineouts, maybe you win the game. You can say if Wayne Barnes doesn't give that penalty against Adi Savia, maybe you win the game. But honestly, there are so many factors that are in your own control you got to look at those ones first, from my point of view. There we go. Next one. Red card. Not ruin, as in the red card didn't ruin the game. Like Ian Foster mentioned the day after the match that he thinks 20-minute red cards are a good idea. I'm honestly inclined to agree with him. I think there's benefit in 20-minute red cards. I know there's a big argument about how player safety will be an issue if you get rid of the red cards the way they are now. I still think there's a fair few people who don't quite understand how 20-minute red cards work. Like they think a player can go take somebody's head off, sit for 20 minutes like a yellow card, and then they get to come back on. That's not how they work. The player is still gone for the match and still gets a ban like they would with a normal red card. But that's a kind of whole other kettle of fish. I think there are other ways to kind of ensure player safety without having the red card rule the way it is. But that being said, despite the fact that I kind of agree with Fozzie on the 20-minute red card thing, that red card didn't ruin the game. There was still genuinely a contest. Part of the thing about the whole red card debate is what Fozzie says, and what a lot of people have been talking about prior to this, is about how, if you get a red card early, the punishment is a lot more excessive than if you get a red card late. So, there's not really any difference between a 70th minute red card and getting a yellow card. Obviously, the off-the-field punishment is going to be different because you'll get banned if you get a red card, whereas a yellow card, you just sat for the 10 minutes. And that's an area I think that they can ensure the kind of player safety thing. I think if you hit guys in the pocket, you will see behaviour changes, personally. But, the red card, it didn't ruin the game. There was still a contest to be held. We saw it in Argentina against England in the pool stage as well. England fought really well with a man down. So New Zealand galvanised, despite the fact they were out their captain for the majority of that game. Geordie Barrett was packing down on the side of the scrum, and it was still a good contest, despite the fact that there was a red card early on. So, it's unfortunate there's a World Cup final which has a red card in it, just like the women's final last year. But, I don't think you can say that it ruined the game, personally. The next one, I'm going to say it's the same three. When I say the same three, this World Cup has the same three medalists as the last World Cup. South Africa get the gold again, so back-to-back world champions. That is an unbelievable achievement. That is a very difficult thing to do, is to take a squad from that 4-year cycle and still have them at a level where they can win another World Cup. Obviously, you can be competitive. You can make quarterfinals. You can make semifinals like the All Blacks did in the 2019 World Cup. They couldn't get back-to-back-to-back. All Blacks did it 2011, 2015. South Africa's now done it 2019, 2023. Massive achievement. And then beyond that, the All Blacks and the English have swapped places for second and third. So it's the same three medalists. First, second, and third. It's still the same three countries. So, you could make the argument that that's a bad look for the game and that it's the kind of same. But I do think at this World Cup, Ireland will one score away from knocking out the All Blacks in the quarters. France will 1 point away from at least tying it up, or one score away, one kick away from knocking the South Africans out in the quarterfinals. Likewise, England could have knocked South Africa out, which would have changed the order. There were games which were a flip of a coin, which were very tight. There could have been a lot different order to the teams. You could have had a France-Ireland final, if not for a couple of kind of key plays in those games a few weeks ago. So despite the fact that it's the same three, I like the fact that we went into this World Cup genuinely having at least four. I mean, England stepped up. We wouldn't have said England was a genuine contender going into the World Cup, but they got so close. So 4 or 5 kind of genuine contenders for the Cup. A team like Scotland doesn't even get out of the pool. There were some genuine big teams in this Cup, despite the fact that it is the same three medalists. I hope the 2027 World Cup equally has kind of a balance where you can see multiple sides winning it. And then the last one, I'm going to say it was a good watch. And I'm not just talking about the final, but also the bronze final. The bronze final was a good game, man. That game gets way more grief than it needs. People say it's a waste of time. They shouldn't play the bronze final. These teams should just go home after they get knocked out in the semis. I've never really... I know that the players don't get on board. And I know that historically the coaches have used it as a chance to just, play the dirt trackers who didn't get a game because it's a game with less on the line. But it's still a test match, and I feel like England and Argentina at this World Cup really did that game a bit of justice. They played out a proper ding-dong battle. They rotated the squads a little bit. I mean, England, especially with the 6-day turnaround, rotated a few guys in and out. But yeah, it seemed to mean something to both the squads. Both really wanted that bronze medal. The Argentinian guys were destroyed at the end. Michael Cheika went on a big tirade. You could see him like going off his head in the coach's box, and Owen Farrell and Steve Borthwick seemed, not like over the moon, but just quietly pleased that they've walked away with this World Cup, with something tangible, something to build on for the next World Cup where they'll want to go a step further. But yeah, it's nice to see that it was a meaningful game. It wasn't just two absolute B-sides. Both sides wanted to win it. And people who didn't watch it, I think, missed out on a pretty good game. So yeah, there you go. 5 takeaways from the 2 finals, the bronze final and the actual final from the Rugby World Cup 2023. As I mentioned, there's a Planet Rugby article for this one down in the description. The Rugby World Cup is over. I'll be doing a couple more summaries. I'll probably pick some kind of either a team of the tournament or kind of outstanding players from each of the teams. Before we're done, we'll have a look at the Rugby World rankings. Obviously, South Africa is going to be at the top of those because they won the entire thing. But yeah, it's pretty much the end of the road. 2 Cents on Tour, if you haven't seen that, went to a Chinese university, got denied by the guards, still managed to get in, but I had to kind of pay a dodgy agent to get me in the back door. Random, but it happened. Up in the description, down in the description, up in the corner. You guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.